Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Rockland Talk Radio, produced by Shark Creative and made possible by Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, promising to keep you powered up through April of 2021. We're back with another episode 2 of the Forager's Hour with my good friend, Paul Tappenden. Just to recap a bit, episode 1, we talked to Paul, his adventures and how he got started in foraging, from his South American extravaganzas and everything he did there, where he fell in love with the wild food, the plants, the medicine, that everybody was living off of the land. They didn't need any stores. They didn't need markets. They didn't need Amazon. They lived off what grew around them. They survived off of everything that was growing. And that's really what struck a chord with Paul whenever he was younger. I think that was in your 20s. And now today we're going to talk about something a bit different. So, as you know, Paul's a forager, an herbalist, a man of many hats, but there's a lot of foragers and a lot of herbalists out there. And thanks again for joining us, Paul.
Yeah.
What would you say kind of sets you apart from all the other herbalists and foragers? What makes Paul Tappenden Paul Tappenden?
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. I started out as a forager, and pretty much I'm a regular forager like other foragers. Now we'd be gathering wild foods and so on. Then I started getting into the herbal medicine end of things, and I became more of an herbalist than a forager. Now, the thing about being an herbalist is that the vast majority of herbalists out there, they use suppliers. They have people that supply them their herbs, and then they use them. The difference with me is that I always gather my own herbs, and I only use local herbs. I mean, there's some fabulous stuff that comes from all over the world, but quite frankly, we don't need anything outside of our area because our bodies are tuned in to the what's going on inside the soil around us, and what's going on inside the air is going on inside us, and it's all part of a unity. So if we use those local medicines, they tend to be a lot more effective than something that we bring from Brazil that's suited more to their climate and their bodies. So
that's interesting. I didn't even know that, that was another aspect of the foragers, and I totally hear you there. I agree that. Yeah. I think that's just how evolution's evolved. I mean, that's how evolution's happened. Yeah. We've adapted to our surroundings, and to go outside of them it's another form of adaptation, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's given me an opportunity to experiment and explore herbs to a great degree. Without a great outlay of finances.
Yeah,
if you can go and gather them from your own yard, it's a lot less expensive than going and paying I know they're worth it, but you go and pay $45 a pound for herbs, or even more. It starts to get expensive, especially when, as you see around us, all of the herbs and medicines here. I mean, there's probably thousands of dollars worth of value in these. They didn't cost me anything but the cost of the bottles, and the alcohol for making the tinctures and stuff. But the herbs themselves, no, they're all local.
So, all local herbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some small benefits of maybe finding different plants, maybe. I guess, well, here's a question for you. Is there any benefits for, I guess, what could you find maybe, let's say, in Brazil or in a different climate based off of where we are in Rockland? What type of herb would you wish, I guess, that grew here? Is there, or can you find equivalents? Like, is there something that grows in Brazil?
Yeah. I mean, the point is that whatever special powers any herb possesses is possessed by many other plants across the world. Some have more power and energy in these areas than others. They bring what are the berries that they bring from the other side of the world? Goji berries, yeah.
Yeah, goji berries.
Yeah, I mean, so they go out of their way to get these. I mean, these goji berries are very high in antioxidants. But growing in the woods around here, we have a local berry that's about between 9 and 13 times more than goji berries. So the fact of the matter is that if you look, you can find almost anything you need within your local surroundings. And really, I cannot think of things from other parts of the world. Maybe things like ginger, which of course we can grow locally. But there's a few exotic herbs which really are things I would like to have. But then we start getting into Ayurvedic medicine and other forms of medicine which use herbs and spices that come from other parts and are very effective.
You said Ayurvedic medicines?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a bit on that more?
Yeah, I mean, in like China and India, they have whole different regimes of medicines that we really we do use them here because we've learned from them. But I mean, Ayurvedic medicine is a way of eating that the Indians have developed. That as you put your meal together, you analyze what your body needs and you add it to that food in the way of flavoring. And they're very conscious of this in their eating. When they prepare a meal because that's what the body requires. Whereas we just kind of slap something together.
Go with what we want. We get a number 7, whatever's on the menu that's cheap that day.
Yeah.
The dollar menu. And so we were on the goji berries. Which berries were you referring to that you find locally here that are higher in antioxidants? I'm sure there's multiple of them, but what's maybe one that you find yearly and frequently in harvest?
Well, there are several really very good and effective berries. Like, for instance, our local blueberries are considered one of the strongest anti-cancer foods available, as with the blackberries. But one of the highest antioxidant berries out there is called barberry. And it was introduced into our area, and it's now gone wild in the woods, and people hate it because it's taking over. But the fact of the matter is that those berries are actually edible, and they're filled with goodness. So I take them like a supplement. Whenever I'm walking past one of the bushes, I just pick a few berries and eat them every time. Yeah,
and they're red berries, correct?
Yeah,
the barberries.
Yeah, I mean, and there's other. I mean, there's the autumn olives that come out in the spring, and again, that's an introduced berry, but very high in antioxidants and lycopene and many other goodnesses. Vitamin C. So I mean, what we really need in our bodies is right there to be picked, to be gathered, to be used.
No need to look further than your immediate surroundings. Maybe
not really.
A couple 50 miles, 20 miles, something around there.
Yeah.
But in the region.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. So for the folks listening that are maybe not foragers or have an interest in foraging, or maybe they're intermediate, what would be some beginning advice you would give to somebody, even like myself? I've learned a bit from Paul from knowing him over the past year, but I'm still a beginner in the world of foraging, and I'm getting so much knowledge by being able to host this podcast with him. Yeah. But what would be a good piece of advice for somebody wanting to start out to learn about plants, to learn about them, and figure out,
All right. So the thing is that a lot of people are put off by the fact that there's hundreds of plants out there, and to them it becomes a sea of green. That's a confusion. Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it that way, yeah, sure. But there's a much simpler way of going about it. And that is, you find just one plant that you know how to identify, or learn how to identify, a single plant, and then start to read about it. And then experiment with it, play with it, use it in cooking. Find how many different ways you can turn it into food or turn it into medicine. The simple dandelion, that thing that we spray in the middle of our lawn, has so many uses from the top to the bottom. I personally have myriads of different ways of using dandelions. When it comes to the root of the dandelion, I mean, I don't know whether you've ever tasted. Have you ever tasted my dandelion coffee?
I have not. I watched the video on it, and I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued by it.
Okay, well, I'll definitely make you some this year, because I'm out of it now. But oh man, it's one of the best drinks. I love it.
Fun fact about it: that's actually the dandelion coffee. Apparently, I guess during communism times in Romania, when the coffee wasn't as affordable or as available, that's what they would make as a substitute.
Yeah, same in England during the war or after the war. Yeah, so I mean that was where a lot of my roots came from. Survival after a major catastrophe. People learn how to use their surroundings, and that way of thinking, that way of looking was kind of installed into me, whether, it was I guess by association, really, because, I never needed to live that way, but my parents did, and people around me did. So it gave me the whole idea that nature provides,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mother Nature does provide. I even needed an ice bath for eggs this morning, and it snowed, and I used some snow. Very different example.
So what I find is that if people have trouble taking hold of this whole concept, as I say, it needs to be kept simple. Learn all you can about that one plant, play with it, do things with it, eat it, whatever you want to do with it, do it. Make sure it's a safe plant, mind you.
Don't eat poison. I was just about to disclaim, don't eat poison ivy.
Yeah. And that plant will teach you a lot about other plants. And then when you are introduced to a new plant, you're going to find it so much easier to understand that new plant by having explored so much of the previous plant. And then slowly but surely you can introduce new plants into your life, learning how to eat them or use them medicinally. And very, very slowly it'll grow, and you will build your knowledge and your medicine cabinet. It's going to take many years to get to the point where you've got as many things as I have on these shelves here. But I
Quite
mean,
the lot.
Yeah, but you don't need all these. I mean, this is my pursuit in life. This is my interest. But most people, I mean, you can probably get away with like half a dozen simple plants that will cover many of your issues. So,
So keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, the KISS method. Taught it in grade school, and it persists in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was because I'm using the method of choosing one plant right now, and right now the name escaped me. It was the plant that's growing behind my house that almost has a timey, minty smell right now, and it's everywhere.
You're
the North
talking
American
about,
honey
pennyroyal.
Pennyroyal, there we go. North American pennyroyal. I was trying to think about while you were talking. I was like, yeah, North American pennyroyal, and it's like a timey, minty type of.
Well, I used to call it breath mint.
Yeah,
because you chew on that and it really freshens the breath.
Yeah.
Your whole mouth comes to life.
It grows like wildfire behind my house, and I've put a little bit on my run, so I'm curious. I've only seen it in the dry winter and fall, so I'm curious to see what it looks like in the spring. And because I'm sure
you won't recognize it in the spring.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to have to come and show you again, because it took me years. I mean, I used to see it in its dying form or its dead form at the end of the year, and I thought, next year I'm going to go gather some of that. I could not find it anywhere. And then I realized one day, that's it. It was only because I was walking along in the woods and I brushed up against it, and that smell hit me.
It's a strong smell.
Yeah.
It's a very strong smell. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the spring. If I can't find it, because it is everywhere in that forest. So
yeah,
we'll see. Oh man, that's the amazing part is Paul came to my house one day, and I actually just found the notes again on my iPhone where it was just, there's mullein next to my rock in the backyard. There's this plant next to this. There was a mushroom growing on this log, and Paul was over for 5 minutes and introduced me to 7 new plants that. They're all gone now because of it's wintertime, but I'm going to go rediscover them in the spring.
I was hoping that the mullen stalk might still be around.
Yeah, and there was a lot of mustard green out in the front too.
Yeah. Because somebody just wrote to me and asked me to send her a photograph of Mullen Seed. And see, the amazing thing about mullen is it grows like 8 feet tall, and it's this massive giant of a plant. And if you shake the seeds out of the top of it, it's like a fine dust. Mm-hmm. It's not, you wouldn't know it was seed. It's like dust. And so she wanted to put that into a documentary she's doing right now. So I'm looking for seeds, or at least dead mullen.
Okay, well, come back over. We'll find some dead mullen.
Yeah.
And I know that was the dusty small seeds. That was the same case with the Sweet Annie plant as well.
Sweet Annie, same deal.
Seems like a lot of those plants, a lot of the seedlings are really, really, really small on a lot of these.
I guess the whole purpose is to spread the plant
so they can
around,
pollinate better
on the wind, and travel different places. Yeah.
I guess that brings me to the question. I forget the name of the theory we were talking about. It was basically about the color and the size of the plant determining their herbal use or what they could be used for. Maybe certain shapes are dangerous or certain colors. What was that theory called
The
again?
Doctrine of Signatures.
Doctrine of Signatures theory. Yeah, I guess talk a bit about that. Let us know how that applies to your world.
Well, there is this ancient theory that many people still adhere to, that the shape of a plant or the color of a plant, the smell of a plant, the texture of a plant will tell you something about it that relates to what it's used for. For instance, they say that if the leaves are shaped like kidneys, then it's good for treating kidney issues. If it's a heart-shaped leaf, it's good for treating heart issues and so on. There's a certain degree of truth to that, but at the same time, it's kind of a dangerous theory, because sometimes things look like like for instance, there's things that might look like an internal organ that will kill you. So you don't.
Some of the prettiest mushrooms you should never eat.
So it's an interesting theory, and definitely worth looking into and studying. People have written whole books about it, whole tomes about it. So it's not like it's a crank theory, but it's like one of these things, like mushrooms, as you say. You know a little bit about it can be dangerous.
Yeah. It holds a bit of water, but it's not the Bible not the Bible to follow by. Okay, it looks like a heart. Let's do some double checking.
Yeah. So.
Folks. Well, just the recap. This is Paul Tappenden. You're listening to Rockland Talk Radio on the Forager's Hour. Paul is an herbalist, forager, artist, painter. If you want to help support him and learn more about what we're talking about now in more detail, you can visit rocklandforager.com, get a copy of his book, or you can also get some of his merch. He's got this shirt on that he's repping very nicely right now, the Rockland Forager. Stand up, show him the back. Let's show. You got to show him what's going on behind there. Rockland Forager on the front, and it says "Got Weeds," because that is exactly the things that we're talking about. Everyone considers the plants and the herbs and the food that they throw out of their yard to be weeds, but they're truly edible herbal remedies. So,
and it's a funny thing about the whole term weed, because I have so many people who have written to me over the years and said that since they've started reading my work, that they can no longer weed their yard. They go out there and they go to pick something and say, but it could be valuable. This could be a medicine, or this could be a food, so I don't want to touch it anymore.
After meeting you, whenever we first moved into our new house, the landlord was doing some weed pulling. I'm like, oh, what is she pulling? I was concerned, It could be something worth value in there that could be good. And sure enough, you came over a few months later and there was.
Yeah, for sure. There always is.
What's, so we know you're more of an herbalist, but you also love to cook. You've got a background in, I think, the culinary arts. Did you study culinary arts? Or?
Well, no, I didn't study myself, but I went to college with somebody who had just got out of culinary school.
Same situation as me. Yeah. Learned from living with a chef.
Oh, well, there you go. And he taught me all the basics of cooking. And then I started studying, more along gourmet lines of cooking. And that really started me out in life. And then once I started discovering all of these wild ingredients, I just managed to tie the whole thing together. And I've produced a lot of interesting dishes over the years. And of course, I spent 2 years working with a gourmet chef. Also, I taught her about all the wild plants out there, and she taught me what to do with them.
That sounds like a great partnership.
Yeah,
that sounds like an awesome partnership.
Yeah.
With the wild foods in mind, I'm sure you have many favorites, but if you had to list 3, what would be your top 3 herbs that you find in plants, herbs, whatever it may be, that you find in Rockland County to cook with? What are your favorite 3? Maybe what are a recipe you tie to each of them?
To cook.
You don't have to go into the recipe, just maybe
here's
just the idea of how to use them.
The one thing that I probably use most in my cooking, acorns. Would you believe? The thing about acorns is that they have a lot of tannin, a lot of tannic acid in them, and they're not very edible as such. But you can leach that out, and then they become just nuts. And at that point, I grind them into flour, and I do a lot of baking with. In fact, I don't bake anything nowadays that doesn't have acorn flour in it, including bread. So that's probably my number one main plant that I use in cooking. I was talking about the autumn olives in the fall, because the great thing about autumn olives is that these trees, when they produce an abundance. I mean, pounds and pounds of fruit on one tree, and there's no thorns. I mean, that's one of the things about gathering berries, is you usually watching out for thorns, but not with that tree. So you end up being able to get a lot of berries in a short time.
Yeah, simple harvest.
Yeah, and it makes a really tasty sauce that's filled with goodness, and I use that to fill pastries I make with the acorn flour. So it all ties together. And let me say, I would say, yeah, dandelion might be the third, simply because I use the roots to make a dandelion jerky, which is outrageous. I love it.
Now I'm very intrigued.
Yeah,
dandelion
I'm
coffee, dandelion jerky.
All
right,
it's really good. I mean, it took me some years to learn or teach myself a technique for doing it. Getting the best out of it.
Yeah, is it similar to like a fruit leather process kind of feel?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and then in fact I make fruit leather out of the autumn olives too. So
there you go, another recipe right there. Just need a dehydrator.
Oh, I got lots of recipes. So as well as making the jerky, I'm out of dandelions. Of course, I make a fake chopped meat. I grind it fine, and then I boil it up in a strong flavored sauce to give it flavor. And I do things like I make Jamaican patties filled with dandelion.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm telling you,
it's like a dandelion burger of some sort.
People gobble these up. They love them. It's something about the combination of the texture, the flavor. It's really good. As I say, I've done lots and lots of experimenting, exploring over the years with these things, just to see how I can get the best out of them. So, after 25 years of doing this, I've got some pretty good recipes under my belt.
Whew, you're making me hungry. Good thing I'm over here for dinner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we're not eating dandelions for dinner.
That's all right. I'll survive. I can wait till dandelion season to come around. Oh boy. Well, we talked about recipes. We talked about what did we talk about today? We talked about so many things. Recipes, how to start out as a forager. So if you want to start out as a forager, pick a plant, look at it, examine it over the period of a year, 2 years. Watch how it changes. Watch how it develops, how it grows.
Well, it's funny because I've done this with so many plants. So many plants is you do a lifelong study. I used to call it a year-long study, but some plants are only around for a short time, particularly the ephemerals in the spring. But you watch it from the time it pops out of the ground until the time it dies away, and you just make, if not physical notes, mental notes on how it changes, how it develops, what it looks like when it starts and what it looks like when it finishes. You got to know what a dead plant looks like so you know where to look the following year.
Yeah.
That's another part of foraging is being able to recognize signs, and a dead plant is a good indicator of where you can look the next season.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this much. We are not going to run out of things to talk about.
No, we're not.
On this.
No, I've only just scratched the surface.
Just the tiniest bit of a scratch. Well, I guess before we sign off today, would there be one last thing? I mean, there's probably so many things you want to say, but is there one last thing you want to talk about, tell our listeners about foraging, starting out as a beginner? Is there any other pieces of advice or words of wisdom you want to leave them with?
Yeah. Respect. And it's very, very important as a forager. If you don't respect the plants that you're foraging and you just grab them as you see them and don't even think about it, eventually they won't be there anymore. We have to look after these plants and make sure that they're there the following year. And that means treating them right. That means harvesting them right, not taking too much. When you do take it, you trim it, cut it very carefully so you don't destroy the plant. It's a very important aspect of foraging for me, to just love and respect the plants and nourish them because they nourish us.
I think that's probably the best advice that you could give anybody. Respect Mother Nature and it'll respect you back.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. This has been the Forager's Hour with Paul Tappenden. You're listening to Rockland Talk Radio. Respect Mother Nature, and it will respect you back. Use the KISS method. Keep it simple. Identify a plant. Learn about it over the course of a year, 6 months. Just find something to keep it simple. We're produced by Shark Creative, made possible by Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, who promised to keep the lights on through April of 2021. And we'll see you next week. You can find all of our programming on our YouTube channel at Shark Creative YouTube. And also you can find all of Paul's information on rocklandforager.com. Thanks. Have a good one.